Welcome. This is Adeze Okezie, the live video visibility queen with erotic accent, and you're listening to the Style with Anna podcast, the one and only podcast about the many expressions of style. Find out how our exceptional guests turn their flaws into assets and how they define style from their own and unique perspective. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and kindly leave a one-sentence review. Now, let us join the journey and meet the host, Anna in Style, aka the Style Medium.
Thank you, Daisy, for the lovely introduction. It's always a pleasure hearing your professional accent. Hello, Kristina, and welcome to the Style with Anna podcast.
Hi, Anna, and thank you for having me.
It's so lovely to have you here, and I'm really pleased that I'm able to talk to you today because of the very, very, how would I say, inspiring topic you are passionate about. But before we go to that, I want to ask you, what are the 3 words that best describe you?
The 3 words. I think, God, I wish I could say. It's such a puzzling question because whatever I say, I will feel like it's a bragging. But I think I'm definitely fun and a not very serious person. I do hope that I'm kind, although I know that sometimes people find me a little bit intimidating. I do not know why, which is so strange, because I do hope that I'm kind. I hope so. And I'm pathologically honest.
Maybe that's the reason why people are a bit afraid of you.
Maybe.
I mean, I had a similar issue, and people were like, they told me in my face, oh, you're not so scary as I thought you were. I'm like, okay, I'm a nice person. And I can totally understand this. And I think that maybe if complete pure honesty is a part of our identity, people tend to be a bit of unsure how to approach, maybe because they think that, I don't know, we will tell them something they don't want to hear. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Well, I think there's a difference between unfiltered expression of your opinion versus when you just can't lie. And in my case, when I say pathologically honest, it doesn't mean that I will go and tell people what I think is truth, because who am I to judge? I don't necessarily know the truth. But if you ask me a question, I will have very hard times to not say how I feel or to say something to please you. Of course, there are rules of society and civility where you occasionally do say things which are not strictly speaking honest. I mean, when people ask you how you're doing, we normally don't go into long detail. We just say very polite, I'm fine, how are you? So this kind of aspects aside, if you ask for my opinion, I will have hard times not saying how I feel truthfully. So that's what I call my pathological honesty, but it doesn't mean that I will be walking around saying bluntly what I think, thinking that I'm just dropping truth, which is such a subjective thing,
Yes, and it can be, people might take it personally, for sure. Yes, I totally understand where you're going to, and basically, I was talking about the same thing, but we get confused, right? When we talk about this topic, we can get confused what honesty means exactly. And the other thing that I think is very correlated with honesty is authenticity. So could you share what is your definition of authenticity?
So, you know, authenticity is an interesting phenomenon because it is only researched by anthropology. So we do not have a lot of academic material on authenticity, at least not in the context how we understand it in personal growth. But I agree, it is related to honesty, although here I'd like to make a distinction. I think honesty goes on well, there are different vectors, but there's a vector between public and self-honesty. So when we talk about honesty, we usually understand it in the context of our interaction with the outside world. Are you honest with other people? Are you honest with people in your life? But authenticity is not a relationship with the outside world. Authenticity is a relationship with yourself. So it is a force which has no direction because it is your internal relationship. So when we're talking about correlation between honesty and authenticity, you absolutely need honesty for authenticity, but you only need the honesty which is turned towards yourself. Are you honest with yourself? You can be, well, of course, I'm stretching a little bit right now, but you can be dishonest with the world and still be authentic. It is absolutely possible. But I don't think that if you can't be honest with yourself, then authenticity, if you think of the essence of the word, what does it mean? It means being true to your essence, being true to your core, to what you are. So if you're not honest with yourself, you can't know what you are. In that essence, in that aspect, it would be really hard to be authentic.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I'm completely 100% with you because I work with essence, right? I'm an image consultant, and conveying what is inside on the outside and exploring how we can do this in an authentic way is something that scribbles my mind.
Usually it requires courage, I believe, because we're afraid that we will be judged, which is a very natural fear. And again, we are coming back to anthropology in a way, but it is so ancient a fear that although people say, oh, the danger is not real, you know, why would you be afraid of people not accepting you? There's nothing horrible about that. But the truth is that you know, in the ancient days, if you were not accepted by your tribe, you would be in mortal danger. So the fear of rejection or the fear of being judged is absolutely real, as well as the threat is absolutely real. Of course, you wouldn't die nowadays, but biologically, it is the feeling of life and death question. So because we are afraid of being judged, of course, sometimes it requires courage to express yourself the way you are. It's well, Brené Brown is known for her studies on vulnerability, but she has one of her older TED Talks before she was so famous, where she talks about how people they put on masks to be liked for that very reason, because they're afraid to be rejected. But research shows that to create a strong connection in your life, you need to first have the courage to be yourself, believe that you're lovable the way you are, and have the courage to express yourself the way you are. So it's a little bit paradoxical because we put on the masks to be liked, but research shows that to be truly liked, to be truly accepted, but like properly, deeply, you have to have the courage to take off the mask and to show yourself the way you are.
Exactly. And I think this comes from upbringing, because when we are children, when we are young, people are telling us how we should behave, what we should wear, where should we go, who we should hang out with. And I think this influences our way of thinking. And when we grow up, we don't make this switch, you know, that now is the time that we are the ones who decide what is the best for us, how we should react, what should we, you know, what choices should we make, and so on. Of course, it depends how authoritative the environment was when we were, you know, brought up. But still, some of these influences, I see them like working subconsciously on our mind. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, the question is, what kind of choices are you allowed to make when you're a child? I think there are a lot of aspects to that. We could unpack that statement on so many levels, because on one side, yes, of course, when you are a child, somebody has to take responsibility for your safety. Does someone have to take responsibility for what you wear, for how you look? For a lot of other things, I don't think so, but we often overdo the care, and we think that we wish our kids the best, and that's why we advise them to do the way we think is right. The other question is, you know, you can't control what people will tell you, and there will be always expectations, no matter where you go, no matter how old you are. There will be always people who will say, oh, I think you should do this, you should be like this. The question is, are you accepting this, other people's opinions as a rule, as something that you have to follow? Or do you see it for what it is? It's just other people's opinions. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. So I think it's not even the question of what the society expects of you, because it's such an easy escape to say, but I can't because, you know, my family wouldn't accept, or my peers wouldn't agree, or somebody would judge me. But if you look deeper, you're the first person to judge yourself. We judge ourselves, sometimes subconsciously, and we carry the judgment out, and then we train the world to take us the way, the way we take ourselves. One of our authors says, you know, offense is always given, but it is not always taken. So it's not only true about offense, about anything. Advice is always given, but it doesn't always have to be taken. You know, opinion is always given, it doesn't always have to be taken. So that is the aspect which we are not taught. That yes, there is a lot of opinion, there's a lot of advice, there's a lot of judgment. The question is, do you want to take it? Do you agree with that? Do you think it's about you, or do you see it for what it is? How do you judge yourself before you go out and train the world how to treat you?
Yeah, one other important word you mentioned now is judging, because there is a lot of conversations about shame and how we should prosecute this shaming and stop with the shaming and all that. But I see the real core issue here about the shame is actually judging. Because if we feel ashamed of something, if we take a closer look, it may happen that we are judging others about the topic that we are ashamed of.
Mm. It's when it comes to judging or shaming as an act, not the feeling of shame that people feel, but as an act, then definitely there's a lot of projection, and a lot of projection in essence is when you feel something and you project on others, like righteousness. Apparently righteousness is a very classical it's a sign of projection, where very often the feelings that we can't accept or deal with in ourselves, we usually see and judge them in other people. So definitely there is a lot of that projection. And I think this is a concept which we don't talk about a lot, mostly because it's uncomfortable, but a lot of the times our interaction with the world is a mirror reflection of ourselves. So it's easier to say when somebody is not nice to you, it is easier to accept this idea that it's about them, it's not about you. It is empowering, but the same is true about yourself. If you're judgmental of the world, if you are angry with the world, if you are not satisfied, if you constantly see people who are, you know, who irritate you, it is so much about you and not about them. It's a very empowering idea once you allow it to be, but it is also incredibly uncomfortable idea, because it deprives you of so many pleasurable moments of judging the rest of the world.
Exactly. And all these topics that we mentioned today, you are actually going to have in a book, right?
Yes, partially. Of course, the book is, book is a big format, and we wouldn't be able to cover the whole thing. I do talk about being flawesome So it does have to do with judgment a little bit and with authenticity a lot. So there will be a lot of that, of course. And the book is about knowing yourself the way you are, accepting yourself the way you are, and learning to love yourself, not despite your dragons, as I call them, but with them and maybe even for them.
Exactly. My motto is the same. It's turning your flaws into assets, as I say, because
Yes.
what you are, you cannot change, but you can embrace it and enhance it. And when you change the perspective on what and who you are, you may see that gray graphite stone is actually a diamond.
Yeah, it can be. It requires some work, of course. But I do believe that, you see, there are no absolutes, and it's very important to understand that there are things that in our character that we can change and we should change, but then there are essential parts which make you you. And these are the things you can't eradicate. It's important to understand. What I'm trying to drive at in my book is to understand that very often those very qualities that sometimes make you feel uncomfortable and ashamed and you want to hide them, they carry the biggest value that you have to give to the world. Very often, these very things that are so scary and so dark in your opinion, which you're trying to not notice or hide as far as possible, that's where your true value lies. The question is, can you turn them into your value? That requires courage and kindness, for sure, and honesty, of course. So yeah, it is a journey, and it's not as simple as it sometimes sounds, because very often people, when they hear turn your flaws into your assets, they imagine someone who is imperfect saying, love me for what I am. Yeah, that's true, but it's so surface level. In reality, it's much more profound than just love me imperfectly. It's the question is, can you love yourself? You know?
Exactly. This is the point, accepting and seeing for what it is, because oftentimes our image about ourselves may be distorted.
It is. I think, if you know how the brain works, our whole perception of reality is a huge distortion. So there are two things. Either thing number one is that, you may be wrong any moment of time, and that's fine. And that actually gives so much freedom when you realize that everything can change, and your perception of reality can change, and your understanding of the world can change, and you might have been wrong all your life, which is fine. Another thing is that, if it's a big illusion anyway, you might as well choose the illusion that works for you.
Exactly. I say the same thing. I mean, if I'm the creator of my world, I better create it the way I want, right?
True. True. But it has to work, and you have to believe in it, and that's the trick.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Tell me, are you open for collaborations?
In what aspects? What do you mean?
In business partnerships, JVs.
Oh, that's a little complicated question. So I'm a co-founder of Mindvalley. As an author, I'm just an author of my book and some programs. So that's a slightly smaller venture, but I'm a co-founder of Mindvalley, and in Mindvalley we work with authors, of course. It's a tough thing to get to Mindvalley stage, but it is a possibility. And we work with partners. Of course, we have partnership division, so this is all possible. But we have teams, and you'd have to write the letter to the right person.
Where can people reach you?
So me personally, it's ChristinaMänd.com. That's my website, and everything what I have, all social media, my book, everything is there, my programs as well. The only thing is that it's written in an Estonian way, so it's a little unusual. Kristina with a K, and my family name is Mänd, M-A-N-D. So it's ChristinaMänd.com. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today and for your lovely sharing of the same viewpoints and values that I appreciate so much and explore myself. And it's been an honor to be able to explore them with another passionate researcher on this amazing topic that it's starting to emerge now more than it was before. I have the feeling that this is the beginning of something new that is coming,
I hope
and
so, yeah.
it's going to be a huge topic in the coming years. And yeah, what I say, I don't want to be too, futuristic here.
Well, I believe that humans are safe enough in the 21st century to start thinking a little bit more about our life. I mean, so many more of us are privileged to actually not have to worry about food and shelter and our safety, and we get the privilege actually to think about what does it make to be me, and what does it mean to actually express myself fully, something which 100 years ago very few people had access to. So yes, I agree. It's going to take over eventually, because I think everybody wants to be happy, and to be happy, you need to be at peace with what you are.
And this is the perfect closure for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's been really an how would I say, lovely experience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Style with Anna podcast. If you like this podcast, tell your friends about it, leave a review and subscribe. This is your way of supporting us and telling us our efforts are appreciated. I invite you to take the Attraction Style quiz at www.chooseyoursigunaturestyle.com, followed by a 5-day email sequence. You can go on a discovery journey and have a talk with your inner self like never before. If you would like to learn more about my speaker and guests, kindly refer to the links in the show notes. Listen, there is always time for transformation, even after a breakup, divorce, or turning 50. Thank you for listening to the Style with Anna podcast. If you like this podcast, tell your friends about it, leave a review and subscribe. This is your way of supporting us and telling us our efforts are appreciated. I invite you to take the Attraction Style quiz at www.chooseyoursigunaturestyle.com, followed by a 5-day email sequence. You can go on a discovery journey and have a talk with your inner self like never before. If you would like to learn more about my speaker and guests, kindly refer to the links in the show notes. Listen, there is always time for transformation, even after a breakup, divorce, or turning 50.